you're gonna look great. But if you wanna stay in shape, well, you better hit the GymWits.
That's right, man. Tell 'em.
Welcome to the GymWits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic.
And we are the GymWits. So last week you were talking about how you have gone the longest you've ever gone without exercise, or at least the longest you've gone as an adult, probably as a kid too.
Minus maybe a period of being sick.
Okay.
You know, that I had to have some surgery, so I was out. But minus any of those things of just being healthy, yes.
Yeah, and I found, and it's mostly work related, right? You've just been busy.
Lots of things, work-related, personal issues that have not allowed me to be home. A lot of work, a little travel.
Yeah, because I've been exercising, just not nearly as consistently as I had been over the last really year or two. But work, it's like you get busy, and especially when you're in the business like I am, where it's about you get paid by the hour. A lot of times if you have a client or a class to teach, it's hard to turn it down and instead work out. And sometimes even out of guilt. Like sometimes I don't need or want the money. Not that I don't want money, but it's like I'd rather work out than take the money. But if I'm going to be in this place, I don't want to feel bad telling the person I can't do it when they see me there working out, even though, I set a good example by turning down the money to exercise. So it's been a little tough for me too recently.
Yeah. Although I did get a good workout last week. So after the podcast, I did finally get a chance to work out, and it was pretty good.
Good. That's good to hear. All right. So anyway, we've got a study for the week. We haven't done it's funny when we do episodes that we have a guest or Tony, we don't do the interesting studies. So we haven't done this in a few weeks, but have a good one, an interesting one. I think I will be interested to see if you can apply it. What scenario that happened in the not too distant past you can apply this to. So basically, the study was the results show that intense training without proper recovery may lead to bone loss in athletes. So it was researchers from Brock University, and they measured elite rowers. It was over 9 months. It was women. But elite rowers, they measured osteoprotogerin, which stops bone mineral loss. I'm sure I butchered the pronunciation of that. And sclerostin, again, I may have butchered it, which inhibits new bone formation. And it was female rowers training for the Olympics. And what they found was the osteoprotogerin, it decreased significantly during their training period. So the hormone that would stop bone mineral loss decreased, so that makes them more susceptible. And then the sclerostin would fluctuate, but it was at its highest during the high training intensities and lowest during the lower intensities. So again, what would inhibit new bone formation, that was the highest during high intensities of training and lowest during low intensity of training. So, while actual bone density was stable for these athletes, it did show that recovery is incredibly important. It is necessary during training. So again, the kind of variables or the hormones that would you look at to identify potential bone mineral problems were either were in a bad state, whether they were decreased or increased relative to which hormones, what those hormones were doing. They were in a bad state at high intensities. So I'll just give you one more quote from the author, Nigel Kurgan, said, although bone strength remains steady, the fact that OPG and SOST, the two hormones we talked about, expression changed significantly during heavy training may serve as a warning that very intense training without adequate recovery periods may lead to increased inflammation and subsequent bone resorption or loss. Now obviously pretty straightforward. If obviously we talk about the intensity of exercise is really important, but with that are the adaptations that make you stronger. But if you don't allow yourself time to adapt, then that can weaken the system and lead to potential injury. So what injury in recent history do you think we could kind of maybe connect to that?
Well, probably a bunch of ones. I'm sure there was a bunch of MMA injuries.
Come on, which one?
Where people broke bones.
Which one? When Anderson Silva's leg was a check mark?
I was thinking that. So, I don't think so. I think he just Bro, I mean, you could just break a bone.
I think it's
that
a combination.
Was really hard.
My theory, and I
knew that's
this
what
isn't
you were
science,
thinking, but I just thought
I've
that was
always said that. So when you cutting weight, so obviously this isn't about cutting weight, but cutting weight combined with the intensity of exercise, combined with not recovering, there's got to be a bone mineral density depletion, or it's something significant. And here you got a guy who, yes, he's skinny, but if you don't know, Anderson Silva is one of the greatest fighters of all time. A few years ago, he was in a fight. He threw a kick. The guy blocked the kick with his knee. His leg snapped. Or his shin snapped, basically. It looked like a check mark. It was disgusting. And this isn't the first time it's happened. But he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's fairly skinny, especially as fighters are concerned. But he's somebody who's been kicking and hardening his shins for the last 15, 20 years. So there's no reason why someone like him should have his leg snap, except that there is some kind of pre-existing condition or diminished kind of bone density or something wrong. This is my own idea, but I feel like the combination of the training intensity along with weight cuts would play into him snapping his leg. So that's just what I thought of immediately when I read this study.
To me, I get it. To me, I just think that when he threw it, technically speaking, he didn't really widen his hips, and they were saying stuff like that. So it was at a weird angle, and things just happened. Look, Weidman didn't just leave it. He checked it hard, and it broke. It just could have caught that angle. There's a chance that it may have had to do that, but there's also a chance it may not have. But when we're on that point, there have been a litany of MMA fighters who have broken bones.
Yeah.
Recently while training or coming off of an injury only to re-injure it. Yeah. So some of those, if it wasn't Anderson Silva, at least some of those, and you could just go down the line, anyone who's injured, so many people have broken bones. Odds are at least one or two of them, one of those bones is broken because of what we're talking about.
Yeah. So I guess it goes to show, I think we talked about this before, but recovery is almost as important as the exercise when you are exercising. And so if you're not adequately recovering, you kind of break, again, as I said, exercise is this kind of cycle of adaptation. You break down, you adapt. You break down more, you adapt. Every time you adapt a little bit stronger to handle the new stress. And so it's this fine dance or balance between training a little bit harder than you're used to, but giving yourself enough time to recover and adapt to that new intensity. And so if you don't give yourself enough time, that's where you break down you break the body down and you break down the system to the point where you lead to a kind of catastrophic injury. You lead to something that you can't come back quickly from. It's one thing if like you feel a little sluggish or tired, or maybe you tweak your elbow or something and you give it a couple days and you come back. But if you break the system down enough, you have an injury that you can't just come back from. It takes more time or takes more effort or energy.
If anything, I think that of the same injury that was caused by the Corey Hill injury, which was the exact same thing. Now, in that case, I could really see it because he was really tall and he weighed he weighed like 155 pounds. He was 6'4". Yeah. It was crazy. He was crazy working out to get there, probably not recovering. So there's a good chance it's a perfect storm.
I think both of those injuries are a perfect storm of circumstances. So you've got somebody who's already fairly thin, but it's happened. I've seen it happen with guys who are not thin as well. So you have somebody who's also fairly thin. They're maybe they're overtrained. They're maybe low bone density, along with whatever else is going on due to training for the fight. They throw a really hard kick. The person blocks at the exact right angle. Like everything just kind of hits at the right spot, and it snaps. So I don't think. We'd see it all the time if it was just that, but there are there's enough going on that I think this just says just goes to show it's stating the obvious, but not to many people they don't recover. And I think in MMA we see that as a huge thing. Where the MMA fighters train as hard as any athlete on the planet, and they also deal with probably a higher incidence of injuries, more so than any other athlete, because the intensity of the training and the level is so high, and they don't seem to have an off switch, so they're just always on, and that just we see it all the time where they're big fights.
That we're humans, we're not robots. Yeah, we're not machines. We break down.
So it's finding the right balance between training hard but training smart. That I think MMA. More than any other sport, they need to figure that one out. All right, so anyway, on to today's topic. So we're going to get a little philosophical on you as much as we can. We are
fitness philosophers.
We like to call ourselves that at least. So basically, I'll tell you where this came from. So I was listening to a podcast, Philosophy Bites, and they were interviewing Kieran Setti. I'm terrible with pronunciations today, but It was a really interesting podcast, and they were talking about Schopenhauer's dilemma. And through that, I thought I had a couple of kind of the ideas relating to fitness popped up, and I just thought there were a couple of interesting ideas that I would bounce off you and see what you think, and maybe see if we can find a way to tie these to fitness and maybe how to rethink or approach fitness. I think there are some things, again, I don't know how good or bad this is going to be, but we'll get a little philosophical and see where we go from there. So it starts off, so I'll start off with, I guess what's called the hedgehog's dilemma or the porcupine dilemma. So the way it works is this. You imagine a group of hedgehogs or porcupines that need to share heat in cold weather. So the problem is that it's a catch-22 because they need to be close together to keep themselves warm. But the closer they get, they've got spikes. And then as they get closer, they'll stab each other. So they'll hurt each other. So the dilemma here is that while you see, and this kind of then you can extend to relationships, right? You seek to have a close relationship, but other circumstances may make the close relationship unavoidable. So you may be with somebody that you're really interested in and you really like and you get along great, except for one thing. And that one thing just keeps you from being together. And so the kind of hedgehog dilemma, and I quote, the hedgehog dilemma suggests that despite goodwill, human intimacy cannot occur without substantial mutual harm. And what results is cautious behavior and weak relationships. So how would you relate this to fitness? Or do you see a connection to fitness, or do you think I'm just reaching here?
Well,
there's more, so don't worry. I got more if you're not seeing the connection.
Just talking about the human element of it and with relationships between people, is a very interesting discussion in and of itself.
Yeah.
I think as we related to, there's a few ways we could relate it to fitness. For one, the more we get into fitness, the more we start exercising, the more we can see what we're not good at, right? We can see, wow, I'm not really good at lifting weights. I'm not very strong, right? You're at the gym, you see people lifting weights. I'm not very fast. I'm not a very good athlete. You start to really see flaws that you have. The more you get into it, especially if you're not progressing how you want to, or even if you are progressing, there's always going to be something you're not great at. So you're going to sort of see flaws that you have. I think another thing that could happen is the more you get into fitness and health, the more you have to part with these, or you become aware of it, and you have to part with, or you might not be able to part with them, these negative attributes that you might have, your eating habits, sleeping habits, things that you enjoy. You also might have to give up part of your lifestyle. The more that you get into fitness, right, the more you realize, wait a minute, now I don't have time to hang out with my friends. I can't go out as much. I have to part with these things in my life. So that's how I would relate it to fitness.
Okay. Interesting.
Does that make any sense?
I guess it wasn't where I was going, but it does make sense. I guess the way I was looking at it is for especially our lifestyles now, that where exercise isn't, it's not net for most of us, not all of us, but for most of us, especially, in a city like New York, our living doesn't require much exercise. If we want to put food on the table, a roof over our heads, etc., it doesn't require exercise. So our relationship as exercise is such that we need it, but it's stressful for a lot of people, for many people. It's,
even though it's supposed to relieve stress.
Exactly. But the
whole act of it becomes a stressful
exactly. So it kind of becomes a kind of paradoxical relationship we have with it, where let's say fitness can't occur without stressing the body, whether it's mentally or physically or both. Right? You can't get fitness without the stress that comes with it. So instead of committing to a healthy lifestyle, we have this weird relationship with it where we go to extremes. Now, the Schopenhauer's kind of solution was you stay close enough, like for the porcupine dilemma is you stay close enough for warmth, but far enough away not to get pricked. And in a way, when it comes to exercise, if you find yourself with that dilemma, it's kind of, you have to kind of approach things the same way, where you exercise moderation. Like you never go all in, where
so,
a lot of
why
people
not?
do.
So what would this stress from getting closer to fitness?
Let's
where
say
would that
if you're
occur?
somebody who, for many people, again, why I have a job or why we have a podcast that people listen to is not, look, people, I'm sure I'm pleasant to be around, but people aren't paying money to hang out with me. I hope maybe a couple people are, but no, but people aren't paying money to hang out with me, or people, I'm sure people listen to us because we're fun and engaging listening, but also we're actually presenting them with some information or some interesting conversation. So, but that's because people's relationship with fitness is not one, and it's not like people love video games or people who love, there are not, don't get me wrong, there are people who love exercise, but more people, have a relationship with exercise, like kind of a love-hate relationship with it. You love the results, but you hate the process, or
sort of that
frustration with
friend
the process.
or that person in your life who you need something from, who you don't really like, but you know that they're going to provide you with a service, or maybe not a friend, but someone who provides a working service, and you don't really like them, but they get the job done, and you're like, all right, I'll deal with this person because they help me. It's almost a selfish way to look at it. And I'm sure it could go. You could be that person to someone else.
So that's the thing, is that if you have that relationship where the act of exercise, it causes stress, it takes time out of your day. Maybe you have family obligations or work. It's mentally taxing thinking about it. Then you got to think about what results what your goals are. It's physically taxing. For some
thought of
don't.
having, I think also very taxing is just the fact that it's in your life. This worry, I have to get to the gym, and when you don't do it, it taxes you.
Yeah, you feel guilty.
So there's always something. Now, when you do it, you feel good, but then
but you're still dealing with
tough. Yes.
And then there's these large swings for many people where they will go 6 months where they're great, or 2 months, or 8 months, or 2 years, and then they go on these wide other swing where they don't go at all for a year. And so I guess so Schopenhauer's solution is exercising moderation. Do you think that for somebody who is facing that dilemma, is that the right way to go about it? Do you say, okay, well, maybe you're not gonna, maybe you need to rethink, so for many people have very aggressive or kind of optimistic goals where they want the 6-pack, or they want to lose the 50 pounds, or they want the giant biceps, but if you're that person where you have the large gaudy goal, but maybe you have that love-hate relationship with exercise, do they need to rethink their relationship with exercise in order to exercise moderation? Or do they need to rethink their approach in order to focus on that goal better?
So
what do you think?
It's a great question. So first off, I've found that people that don't really love fitness often don't have big fitness goals. That's what I have found. Do you not?
Yes.
Yeah, now, of course, everyone dreams. Oh, I'd love to have a 6-pack. I'd love to look like this. But but it's not a real goal. It's just something like, oh, I'd love to win the lotto tomorrow. It doesn't mean I think it's going to happen. But I think a lot of people that have goals of that nature are into fitness. It feeds the goal.
I think it works both ways. So we're
not talking about health here.
Yeah.
We're talking about now just being healthy. Yeah. The whole concept of just keep fitness close and exercise moderately whenever you can. So in general, moderately is always better than nothingly, right? So if you're going to work out, not terribly strenuously, but you do it fairly consistently and moderately for health, that's perfectly acceptable. Mm-hmm. And that's what sort of the standard guidelines are. Work out moderately, right? And stay healthy. Okay. But those are generally for people that don't have big, lofty goals, right? They've just found a way to incorporate fitness and to sort of keep them healthy. Now, for these people that want the goals, but also don't like fitness, that's a weird one.
No, that's not true at all. So yes, most people, I don't know about most, but a good amount of people, more people than I would have thought when I started, are pretty realistic. When they go to the gym, it's like they have realistic goals. Like, look, I just want to get in, and I want to try to get more fit. Like, typically I don't meet people who don't love exercise and then say, I've got a lofty goal. But, there is a good amount that do. Maybe it's not as lofty as being the fitness model on the cover of Men's Health, but definitely people have goals that are not consistent with their own lifestyle, and it's not realistic. And we're inundated with ads and products and supplements that promise significant results for little work. So there's also an unrealistic perception of exactly how much work it will take to get, whatever the results are that you want. So but the question I have for you is, regardless of how realistic goals are or not, do we try to change the mind? Do we make the mindset, let's exercise moderation, or do we have to explain to the person? Do we need to change their mindset so that they're more focused on the goal? So if you have and we're gonna get to another, like, kind of when we talk about Schopenhauer's dilemma, we'll get a little bit more into the goals. But do we focus, if someone comes into you with a goal but they have the love-hate relationship, do we say, let's not focus on the goal, let's just exercise moderation? Or do we come up with a new way to approach whatever the fitness goal is?
Well, as a professional in the field, I think the big thing would be to assess the person, especially their psyche. Is this person capable of achieving a fitness goal, right? Because if you, after assessing them in the sort of their personality, and of course you could be wrong, but in general, let's assume that you are right most of the time because that is your profession and you're good and very experienced at it. Then if you say this person is never going to put in what it takes to reach this goal, then I would say, yes, let's get them to exercise moderately. Let's step back and let's go for health, and let's get the most that we can. Exercising moderately and not pushing will achieve better overall goals, and go for that. Mm-hmm. If you think that the person is able to achieve this goal, right, then I think you can really put, even if they have the love-hate, but if you're able to push them, I think you could go for it. Now, here's an interesting thing, and this is sort of what I believe, that the people who work out really fall into, 2 or 3 categories. Personally, I really believe that most people who work out, it's because they enjoy working out. That it's very hard to just work out if you don't. The one other group the main group that will work out is people that really feel that health and the benefits that come with working out, they have a real reason to work out. So maybe they don't love working out, but they're really into having the benefits of it. Or maybe the aesthetics to them matter so much that they will deal with not enjoying working out. Or they find that working out is part of their culture. Maybe they work in fitness. I'm sorry, not fitness, but maybe they work in finance, and just working out is part of the culture. So, and it helps them in their profession to work out. They find they don't love working out, but they say as part of this, and they're really driven and determined in their life. So those are the 2 groups. Mm-hmm. I find that the third group, anyone besides that, so either you love working out or you're just so into what the results bring you that you're able to go through with it. I think that if you don't love working out and if you're just so not enamored by the results of it, it's very hard to get people to work out. So I feel that those are your love-hate, those are your sort of intermittent love-haters that are like, they enjoy the results, but they don't really love the results, and they don't really love working out. And it's so difficult to get people like that to work out on a regular basis.
So I'm going to disagree a little bit. I don't think, just my own experience, I think when it comes to just general exercise, so if we're talking about an activity that's fun, like if you're boxing or if you're dancing or some activity where there is some level of entertainment or enjoyment or skill that you work on for the activity, I think then people enjoy it. But yes. I don't think people necessarily enjoy the effort they put in. I think that the what you get out of their ancillary kind of benefits you get, social, if you're, classes or in the gym or friends go to the gym, there's being happy with the results. So that will keep people going.
People do enjoy the overall act of working out and feel it. They like the endorphins.
There's the knowledge that you have to be, but I would put maybe the enjoyment of the process down on the list as far as people who do work out regularly. I would almost say that would be to me the enjoyment of lifting the weights or of running behind the enjoying the benefits or
I
going
guess
for the health
I'll
or going
defer
for
to you because because you're the professional. But
I don't know. That's my take.
When there's a gym rat, they're not. Yes, they love the benefits, but they also love doing.
I don't know. Do they love? See, what I see with the gym rat is they love the attention. They love
whatever. They love that is part of the process.
But that's part of the process. But it's not the act of like I love the act of doing burpees, or I love that people are watching me do burpees and thinking, wow, that guy's doing a great job.
That's fine. So I'll include that. Then fine, I'll include that in one of my categories. People that enjoy the process. Yes, if they had to lift weights by themselves in a dark room where no one could see them, would they enjoy it as much? No. Maybe they enjoy the process of going through the exercise with other people around them, or they because it's hard to do burpees by yourself, but if you're doing it and there's people urging you on, then you enjoy that overall process.
All right,
so there are people that enjoy the sort of it's pseudo social, you know what I mean? It's like the activity concept of it.
All right, so we can stick on this point for a little bit. I'll give my quick thought to answer my own question, which is going back, it is person specific to an extent, but I think that if there's a specific goal, it's easier to stay focused on it, but it's short term. And I think that it's important that people understand that really they're aware of their life. We talk about it a lot, but how their life and their lifestyle is connected to their fitness and what's realistic for them. And so finding, if it means exercise in moderation, sometimes you do have to take a step back on what your actual goals are in order to have some lasting results. And so that becomes the issue where if you have a lofty goal, but you haven't accounted for it with your life, then it usually won't work out. So if you have a big goal, if you decide I'm going to start working out, New Year's resolution, I'm going to start working out 5 days a week. And, I want to lose X amount of weight and build X amount of muscle. If you haven't accounted for that time in your schedule and in your life, then it rarely works out. So I think that anybody who does have a lofty goal, it's important that you work out, how is this going to fit into my life? And if not, it's sometimes best exercise, find a way to moderate and build it into your life in an easier way that's more consistent and lasting and focus more on the health. So, yeah.
So, I think that an interesting sort of thing that gets wrapped up in here is why do people have the goals?
Huh? Why?
Why?
Oh, yeah, that's an important question. And I tend to, whenever I do a consultation, I will ask why do you have the goal? What's the importance of it? Where do you see yourself going after you reach that goal? I think that's another important question. If somebody, often wedding is a big common goal. Someone wants to get in shape for their wedding or their kid's wedding,
But even let's take a step back from there. What causes people in general to have goals of that nature? Not an individual, but what makes us want to have goals, especially.
That's a much deeper philosophical and psychological sort of thing that we are not equipped to answer. Maybe we can bring somebody on to talk about that, but yeah, that's deeper than we can get into. I mean,
at some point, because
we could just get into all kinds of stuff. We could talk about whether if we get into get into free will and whether or not we have it, and we could go deep if we and deeper than again we're probably equipped to go into. So let's keep it as superficial as we can. Talk about these subjects. All right, so second part. So Schopenhauer's dilemma. So pretty interesting. Now this does relate. Actually, it relates very directly to what I was talking about. So let's say you have a goal. Your goal is, give me a goal that you have. What do you have? Give me an important goal for you.
In life, I want to achieve a level of success.
No, a specific goal. Give me something specific. You want to.
Oh, I want to have $5,000. I want to have 100,000 listeners.
Okay, fine. 100,000 listeners. Great. All right. So when you want something, so you want those 100,000 listeners. So while we're trying to fight for those 100,000 listeners, we're in a state of emptiness or yearning. We want it, and that state of emptiness or yearning is painful. So, but if we achieve that, right? If we achieve that goal, then we don't have the wants anymore. So then things become boring. So basically that wanting, the act of wanting something is painful, but if you don't have the wants, then it's boring. And so either you're bored or you have desires, but you have to suffer not having the desire. So again, it's kind of this paradox here. which is why I guess why we can rationalize why it's good that we're not rich, but or it creates an interesting kind of dilemma when it comes to goal, because you obsess over a goal. If you obsess over a goal, then you're going to suffer for not having that goal, and you obsess, and that becomes your obsession. So let's say 100,000 listeners is our goal, and everything we do is focused on that. We just obsess over it. It's everything. We want that. That's all we do. We're on social media all the time. We're telling everybody about the podcast. We're everywhere on every podcast we can get on, and we're just focused on that. But by focusing on that goal, we're extending.
That becomes our meaning.
Well, no, our meaning that we apply or assign meaning to our life based on that goal. But by focusing on it, we're basically extinguishing the purpose. It's like this weird thing where we're essentially, by having a goal and attacking it, we're extinguishing the meaning to our lives. It's a simple,
when you achieve the goal, you erase the meaning. Now in this,
now we do this with weight loss or with any fitness goal, and that's what happens. So you have a very specific goal, and if you do, let's say you do make the choice to be obsessed with whatever that goal is, by obsessing over it, especially if it becomes an obsession, as you reach that goal, you've extinguished your obsession. So then what do you do once you reach that goal? How do you approach it?
I think there are really 2 or 3 types of goals. There's the top goal, and then there are the sliding scale goals. So right now, 100,000 seems like a lot for us, and that's a big goal to reach. But once we get to 80,000, we're like, wait, this is going to happen. Let's 500,000. So we can push our goals.
So so now let's say,
but if someone's goal is to become champion of the world, right? That is, then they've reached it. Yeah. So then they have to almost start. And you hear with champions, they're like, now I need to find new inspiration. So now maybe their inspiration is, now I want to become the best champion. I want to have the most wins. I want to win the most games, or score the most points, something like that. Then that becomes
so the response then is to come up with more projects, basically, or come up with more goals.
That would be a project. See, it's a lot. Now that's where it's tough, because when you reach the top, then it's the goals that you have to create are arbitrary in a way. Now they're all arbitrary, but it's a lot more. To me, it's very different than if we're almost at our 100,000 listeners. Very easy to say, well, if we can reach this, we can reach 500,000.
Well, so I see 2 problems.
But if there is a finite, you're the champion. There's not, you could try to keep being champion, but it's like, where do you go from there?
I still see 2 problems with
extending your goals.
So first off is
so there's so let's differentiate the 2. There's extending your goals, and then there's creating new ones.
Yeah. Okay. I would categorize them as the same thing, essentially, because they're both. Either one is, I've achieved my goal, I create a new goal, right? Okay. So that's it. So whether you extend the goal or you create a new goal, I think I see 2 issues with it. The first issue is that it's really hard to equal the kind of passion that you have for that first goal. Often, if you have a major goal, hitting that takes so much effort, assuming that it's a difficult, challenging goal that takes work. Let's say it's even champion of the world. That takes so much work that it's kind of hard. As I see it, or let's say 100,000 listeners, because that's something practical for us, right? Yeah. Let's say that's our goal, and right now we're very, very far away from that. But if
we're not that far,
we're pretty far from that.
I mean, we already have we have over 100,000 listeners.
Sure. Yes. So let's say 100,000 listeners is our goal. We put every ounce of our being into that goal. Once we reach it, even if we could say 500,000, 1 million, the biggest podcast ever, it's still going to be hard to match the kind of energy, the motivation that we had for that first goal.
Why do you say that?
I just think
I don't know if I agree with that.
I just think that,
what if during the line you can be inspired to do more stuff? I don't know if I agree with that,
because
that's you thinking that. There's a lot of people that while they get into it, they get more inspired.
Well, then your focus was never really that 100,000 number. It was more be the biggest. It's kind of more arbitrary. It's almost like just be as big of a podcast as I could possibly be.
Well, but that was yes, and that's sort of what I said, and you made me put a number on it.
Well, but see, okay, so
But no, but
well,
see,
let's put it in weight
here's the
loss.
two things.
Let's put it in a fitness
the
context.
goal sometimes in a fitness context, sometimes the goal is to be, I want to be as awesome shape as possible, but you're by professionals, you're said choose this to make it realistic.
Okay,
so
so
you can start somewhere, because we know if your goals are too crazy, it's you can't bite off, you're biting off more than you can chew. But by saying, okay, we want to reach 100, like, yes, the goal is really to be a humongous podcast, but by saying 100,000 people, right, 100,000 listeners, that is reasonable. Right now, to say 10 million listeners is unreasonable, but 100,000 is reasonable. So that is almost that's a different category of goals. That's a goal.
Yeah.
That's a
But
stepping stone goal.
I think that the satisfaction you get from those goals diminishes, especially if you have a lofty goal. I'll give you an example, personal example, and then I'm going to try.
All right, we might have to agree to disagree on that. But
when I started lifting weights, I just wanted abs. Like, that was a big thing. I had big arms, but I just wanted abs. That was my goal. I just wanted at some point. That's all I wanted. And so the first day that I could see abdominal muscles, that may have been the best feeling I've ever had to this date. As far as my own fitness of anything like that, I've never got more joy than the day that I looked in the mirror. I was like, wow, I can see abs. And since then I've gotten more fit. I've gotten more, I've done many more things kind of maybe athletically that I should be proud of. But that was the most proud I felt. And so again, it's a stupid example, but I think let's say if you have a big fitness goal, getting that takes the work it's anything else, I don't know that it matches. It may be more. Like, you may have a goal to lose 50 pounds and you lose 50 pounds and then you say, okay, now I can build some muscle. But nothing matches that initial goal to me and for certain things. So I guess we can go off.
We can
forever
agree to
on
disagree
this.
with that. I think that depends on the type of person.
Regardless, the problem here is what happens to somebody who reaches that goal, right? So do they create? So we said you create new goals, but it still doesn't fix the underlying issue, which is that you're still kind of you're trying to destroy the meaning in your life. At some point you're going to have a goal that is you've done it. You can't do anymore. So even if we accept that let's say we go back to the listeners, we get 100,000 listeners, we keep pushing that goal, you're still focused on eliminating the drive in your life. If you have a significant fitness goal. So I don't even know what the problem is.
I get it and completely. And here's a funny and almost sort of anticlimactic way of looking at it, is that it's actually semantics. Is that you say you're destroying your meaning, and yes, it is in a way, but you're also giving yourself meaning and achieving things that you've set out to do. And by achieving things that you've set out to do, it gives you confidence. So now you can go achieve more things. It's making you a better person. And here's the thing, if you only have one goal by which to live by, and that's your meaning, then that in and of itself is a problem. If your whole life revolves around just doing one thing, losing 30 pounds, then I think you're going to be living a pretty empty existence.
So now here's why.
So you need to. That's why being a well-rounded person, having different interests, all sorts of different things, will not eliminate your
So you touched on something
life.
interesting. Okay, so now here's why it's not such an abstract kind of idea.
I don't think it's abstract.
Yeah.
I just think it's a semantical way of looking at it.
And here's why it's not semantics, because I see this all the time in fitness. People do have goals, and even the people that reach their goals, once they reach their goals, they usually bounce back to wherever they were before, and sometimes worse. This is a very common thing we see in fitness. We see it in all kinds of things. How often do we see an athlete that makes it to the top and then they a steep dive down? Like that making it to the mountaintop sometimes, like then you've reached the pinnacle, and so maintaining motivation becomes incredibly hard. So I think the dilemma here is that if you're obsessed with a goal, with the endpoint, when you reach that endpoint, things lose their meaning or lose their value. And we're talking about something like fitness or exercise, which is not, it's different from 100,000 listeners for us. If we get that, that's different from getting in shape, because getting in shape is a lifetime thing. Or I should say, fitness should be a lifestyle, and it should be the focus, your focus forever. And the problem is when we turn fitness into a goal-oriented thing, then it becomes endpoint related. It becomes
Yes.
I have this endpoint, and when you reach that endpoint, for many people, you lose motivation. There's no reason to go back to the gym. I had somebody recently who their thing was they wanted to get in shape for their birthday. It was their 60th birthday coming up. They got in great shape, did everything. After 60th birthday, they're nowhere to be seen, or once in a while in the gym. Again, so when we look at fitness as endpoints, and so I guess this comes to the next thing. So,
But it does it. It also sort of circles back to that very, overly deep question I asked is, why we have goals. The fact of the matter is that those goals were to get us to work out.
Yeah.
It's for some reason we need to create
goals. Because as we talked about way back, there is a stress that comes from the act of working out. And so we need to create a reason to work out. Now, part of it's society, right? When in hunter-gatherer days, we got our exercise because we were hunting and gathering, but we're not doing that.
Food.
So the goal was
survive.
Food. The exercise was or fitness was a product or result of the process of life. Like you had to get food to live. Most animals, they get, especially most animals get their exercise by trying to get food. Yeah. So, we're the only species that has to exercise. Or I guess also, it's interesting when you see animals that are in zoos or, that they have to, because those animals live a different life from they would in the wild, that you have to if you're doing it right.
Even your dog, just walking your dog.
You have to actively exercise the animal because they're not getting what they would have gotten in the wild, which is essentially, it's like we as a species maybe haven't evolved yet to, we haven't evolved to meet the new kind of daily requirements.
It's so funny. But I think that the question was answered. Why do we have goals? And
evolution, I guess.
It's in a way to simulate. Well, what's the main goal of life when you at the base element?
It depends on.
The main goal is to survive and procreate and to continue life, right? So, that's what instinctually you will do to try to survive and to procreate and to continue your species, right? So, when we don't have those those goals still remain the same for many people, the stress that comes along with it is not there.
Yeah.
So we almost have to create these stresses, right? Didn't we talk about something very similar to that? It was like the problems in life that we have when we get really flustered because we get put on hold waiting for because our phone isn't working or I guess or our internet isn't working, we get put on hold or we're calling from, I guess if our phone isn't working we couldn't use that phone, we're calling from another phone, whatever it is, right? And your internet isn't working, so you get put on hold and you get really frustrated, like, and this thing, it seems like life or death, right? It's a big issue. That's taking the place of the fact that we don't have a saber-toothed tiger about to attack us, right? Or we're not worried about whether or not we're going to have enough food to last the winter, or whether we're going to survive some little disease that we got, right? And so our problems have been displaced, and in the same ways, our goals are now different because our goal isn't just to simply get food or to be able to survive. So we have to create the same stresses in order to achieve. In order to achieve things, we have to almost create the stress.
Yeah. So that's a great point. Now I have there's kind of a solution built into this. So, and I kind of touched on it a little bit. So, we keep talking about goals, and that is something that we talk about in the fitness industry constantly. All we talk about is not all, but we talk constantly about goals. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. The industry is guilty of talking about goals, and I think that's problematic. And maybe that's kind of endemic within the industry, and that might be why we have these issues. So you have kind of, I would put things into two categories, basically. And this is not me talking. This is, kind of many philosophers who've talked about this kind of dilemma, is you have activities with an endpoint. So let's say I want to get in shape for a wedding. I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to build 10 pounds of muscle. I want to win the bodybuilding competition. And we can kind of equate, and then the second category would be activities that are ongoing and about experience. So I want to take classes. I want to get better at dance. I want to get better at, at baseball. And when you're doing something that is an experience that's ongoing, that doesn't have a finite end. And so we think about this in life, like, who are the happy, what makes people happy. And, the kind of adage is, which is kind of true and not, but that money doesn't buy happiness. And it's true. Like money will get you things and buys you security. And so it's not, you don't want to be poor. It's not, advantageous. But there is that problem of if you have everything, then it's just like we talked about, if you have everything, life is boring. You don't have wants. And part of, being there's something to wanting something and getting it. But then the happiness, people are the happiest. People are happy traveling and experiencing things. Like that's something.
Whoa. So let's take a step back from that. In our life, people that are first world.
Again,
like,
we're talking.
You could look at people all over the world, and there's various people that are happy for different reasons. It's relative.
Experiences are going to make you in general, and
yes.
studies have shown it's better to have experiences than to have things. And so I'm just kind of drawing a bit of an analogy that having goals is kind of wanting a thing. You want something. Sure. Maybe it's not tangible.
It's easy
but
for us to.
If you want a goal, you want something. If it's more about the experience and ongoing, then it's again it's kind of like you have an experience and it's something that you can you can't grab, but you get to put yourself in there. So I think that if we can get people thinking less about their goals and more about the experience and how can I enhance the experience. So, we have a disagreement about whether or not people enjoy the experience of exercise, but whether or not you do, finding a way to immerse yourself in it in a way that's enjoyable and that's fun and that you can do regularly and where you enjoy the experience, you enjoy the process, that's going to lead to more consistent kind of activity or more consistent use. Now, not everybody can find that, but I think for people who are struggling with the gym and maybe are in that kind of like love-hate relationship or that, I'm close to exercise and I'm far away, maybe finding a way to experience it and enjoy the experience, that's going to be more important than focusing on your goals.
Didn't we say that almost from day one?
Maybe.
That it's and that's why we've encouraged so much finding an activity, a sport, something, whether you like, if CrossFit makes you really happy because you're working out with other people, if you enjoy ultimate frisbee, right, finding that activity, the sport, whatever it is that you really enjoy doing, that provides your fitness needs, which kind of goes back to the one of the first things that we were also discussing about the groups of people that are consistent. Are the people that enjoy working out now. Just to clear one thing up, I didn't just mean lifting weights or running. I meant exercising in general. Okay. The people that are consistent enjoy it, right? And that that some people are. Some people are just the goals. They're just about whatever not goals. Sorry, results. But I think
the reason why I'm going to disagree with you.
You just said that that's the way to
no, that's the way to approach it. But I'm just saying that most people that do it don't have that approach. They just think I got to exercise. So my because I can tell you why. Because I know when people don't exercise, there's guilt. But the guilt isn't because they feel bad that they missed their time at the gym. They feel bad because they missed their exercise because they need to do it. And they're losing kind of fitness points, So that's my only point. Again, we don't need to get into it. Maybe we'll do a survey or a poll for our 100,000 listeners. If we did have 100,000, then we could do polls like that.
It makes an interesting point though. So we're saying you want to approach it by trying to enjoy it, but
yes,
there are people that will never enjoy working out. So then maybe you try to find an activity that you enjoy.
I mean, that's the thing is that
there's people that just do not enjoy physical activity.
I think it's you have to have a conversation with yourself in some ways, and really, if you're a person who's gone through the yo-yo phase or the, you're exercising for a bit and then you stop and you're inconsistent. It's why am I inconsistent? Do I like exercise? Do I hate it? Do I let my job get in the way? And so, if you're somebody who allows your work or other obligations to kind of take priority, then you have to, or if you hate being in the gym, you have to find something that will keep you consistent. And if you're somebody who's very goal focused, like when you get back to the gym, it's like, I got to do this or I got to do that, maybe just take a step back on that and not think about the goals so much as think about what can I do that's going to, I'm going to enjoy doing.
Is there any way to have the sort of reverse way of thinking about it, to go into it thinking about how much you hate it. Be like, I hate working out, but and try to find some way. But you know what? I'm gonna do something I hate. I know it's good for me. Like fully embracing the fact that you dislike it, but you have your 30 minutes that you're gonna work out. You're saying, you know, Matt, what? I don't care if I hate it or not. I'm gonna do it anyway. Right? Finding some way to say, well, I hate it, but I can prove to myself that I can do something I hate doing.
That sounds kind of masochistic.
But whatever, if that's how you...
I guess. I don't think that would work for most people.
You don't think that would work for people?
Yeah.
Fully embracing the fact that you don't like it.
Yeah, I don't know.
But isn't it almost a little healthier than keeping this love? Like when you really don't like it, but you're trying to convince yourself that you do, wouldn't that almost create the yo-yo? Like if you just fully you fully admit that you don't like it, but you find a system that works.
I mean, the problem is that you create a negative connotation with exercise, so it can only last so long. You know, if you're negative about exercise and you're kind of open in your negativity, I guess in some ways that honesty may allow you to embrace it a little bit more. You're by being honest with yourself about it, you may have a better, I don't know, maybe in a way like a healthier relationship with exercise that makes any sense. Like you're not lying to yourself, you're not trying, you're not faking it. And so maybe you won't be as stressed out about certain aspects of it. But at the same time, if you're creating this kind of negative association with exercise, I feel like it can only last so long because you still need some motivation. And if your motivation is negative, I mean, because it essentially just becomes like, I hate this and I'm going to do this because it's going to make me strong. It's almost like, people who do things that they don't like because they have this feeling that it's going to make them a stronger person by doing it. It's like, yeah, it sounds good and it might work for some period, but at some point, like I think that's a battle that then you're fighting. You're fighting this constant battle of like, I hate it, but I'm going to do it. I hate it, but I'm going to do it. It'll make me stronger. It's like I don't see how that's healthy in the long run. I think it's better to try to find an activity that you do enjoy doing, or again, maybe a way to minimize the. If you really just hate any activity, then find a way to minimize it or do as much as you can. In a way that maybe keeps you interested, but that depends on the person. So I don't know. I think we beat this a little bit, but if you thought this is interesting, maybe send your thoughts, or if you're a philosopher and have your own thoughts, maybe we butchered some of these definitions, you can kind of tell us what you think. But anyway, we have one Ask the Trainer.
Yes, this comes from Metal Fred.
Metal Fred.
Metal Fred. Hey, Ryan and Justin. Love the podcast. After years of being overweight, last May I started my journey to health and I've lost over 30 pounds. Most importantly, I feel the healthiest I have in my entire life. While my program has been going well, occasionally I feel a twinge in my back. I know that you are not a PT or a doctor, but can you suggest some good exercise or stretches to prevent any back problems? Thanks and keep up the great work.
All right. So again, as we've, and I guess Metal Fred, was that the name?
Yeah, Metal Fred.
I guess Metal Fred has listened to the podcast because he knows that I am not a doctor PT, so I don't love giving advice on injuries. What I will say is, you have your injury, kind of post rehab work. And then you have kind of what's called prehabilitation. So it's kind of like, we'll do an episode on that at some point, but it's kind of, you think about it more as like preventative work. So you take there are a lot of common injuries, lower back being one of them, and doing exercises that work to kind of preemptively attack, an area that is commonly injured. So, lower back is a common area. I can't, without seeing how you move and how you perform exercises, it's a little hard to say, you should do X, Y, and Z, but I can give you an idea of some of the common problems. So some of the common problems, again, is a weak core, as we generally talk, but generally it's just weak trunk muscles. So you're thinking about all the abdominals, the obliques, anything that keeps your spine stable. Those muscles tend to be weak. So any things that can strengthen it in all ranges. So you're talking about rotationally, statically. So you think just stabilizing like a plank, but think about like wood chops or movements that may work the torso. But then you also want to make sure that you're not moving ballistically, at least not, unless you've trained up to that, so that you're doing things that work rotation, that work kind of across, downward, work in all directions. Then you've got the lower back. So lower back often is tight. So just, looking at your posture, do you have an arch in your lower back? Do you have a curve in the lower back? is it flat? So there should be kind of a small arch in your back. So like, let's say if you're lying down with your knees bent, you want to be able to slide your hand or slide like 4 fingers underneath the lower back, but you shouldn't get too much more than that or too much less than that. So that, so you want to make sure that the lower back is in a good position. The hip flexors is a big thing. So if the hip flexors are too tight, that often leads to a chain reaction that can lead to lower back problems. So making sure that the hip flexors are properly stretched, but also making sure the hamstrings are not too tight. So there's a lot going on there. So it's a little hard to say. What I will do is we'll add for app users, we'll add a little PDF with some exercises that I find are useful for just kind of prehabbing the lower back. So again, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to address an issue. So if you have an injury, you definitely want to seek out a PT or a doctor and make sure that there's no, other serious issue. But if it's something where you feel a twinge here and there, it might just be, there's some exercises and stretches that might help. So, there's some lower back stretches that are good. There's some rotational stretches that can be pretty good, and hip flexor stretches. And again, like I said, strengthening the core. So we'll include a PDF with the with this episode for app users where you can kind of see some things that might be useful. But again, like I said, hip flexor flexibility is important. Making sure the lower back's not too tight. Making sure that you've got solid core strength, but that you're also strong in all directions. And not just doing tons of crunches and planks, but actually doing rotational movements and static movements and even balance exercises like single leg things can be really good for the trunk. And yep.
So a couple things I would like to add to that. Good massage therapist might help.
But a bad massage therapist can be detrimental too.
Yeah. So I would go, make sure you have a good one. Once again, always speak to a doctor. I've known people that have used inversion, where you lie up, where you can hang from one of those things like a teeter. Once again, you may wish to speak to. I would actually recommend speaking to a physician. One thing that I would recommend not doing is to go to any pseudo doctor. Right, a non-doctor like a chiropractor, right? Now, if a doctor is also a chiropractor and says, I can provide a service, is also a doctor, or a doctor recommends you to go to a chiropractor, that's one thing. But I am fully in favor of not going initially to a non-doctor.
So I would say this. If you're experiencing lower back pain, and this would go for anybody, definitely, go to a doctor that deals with, if you can, an orthopedist and go to PT. That's my recommendation. As far as chiropractic is concerned,
there's a lot of pseudo doctors that have all these
here's
things.
The issue with it is that there are some good ones and there are some bad ones. And the main issue I would say with that is as a practice, there isn't a ton of research that is showing that it's of any benefit, that it's going to correct or fix an injury. Now it might feel good, much like massage, it might feel good, but there's not much out there it will fix the problem. So if you have a problem, then you need to go to a doctor, a physical therapist, and try to get that addressed. Get it addressed. If you just want to kind of feel better in the moment or for a day or two, then massage and chiropractic can be fine. So it's just a matter of going to the right person and going to somebody that's going to listen to you and address your own needs. And that's where, I know many people have had bad experiences with chiropractors. I know many people who love their chiropractors and have great experiences. So it's just a matter of, going, you kind of have to do your due diligence when you're seeking someone out. I mean, to an extent, you have to do the same thing with doctors. Yeah, but
that like the back and back pain. There's so many people right now that are non-doctors that say, I can fix this. I can fix this. I just be wary.
Well, that's the thing. If you're I would just say
there's also doctors have an oath that they take, and there's a standard to which they have to operate. These people that are not doctors, there's no.
No, I agree. And for what it's worth, I think
there's no checks and balances, but they could do anything.
There are many chiropractors that would probably disagree with that. Now, I'm not advocating for it, because I do think that the research shows that it's, at least from my perspective, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for the most part, the real research, it tends to, because there is some research, but then you find out that it was funded by the National Chiropractic Institute of America, something like that. I don't know if that is a real organization, but the point being that it can be good in the way that massage is good, it can feel good, and there are therapies and modalities that physical therapists use that there's some crossover. So it's not that it's not a practice that can feel good. It's just a matter of it's not going to correct your injury. So if you have an injury, then you need to take the appropriate steps to correct it and fix the source of the problem. Because that's the other thing is that, a physical therapist is gonna, if there's an underlying issue kind of mechanically, the manipulations might make you feel better, but that manipulating your back is not going to fix the underlying issues. So there may be issues that need to be corrected that you need to go to a physical therapist or you need to go to a doctor to correct. So again, I don't want to, we don't have a chiropractor here to defend themselves. And if they did, I don't want to disparage kind of the practice, but I do think, from what I do know, that it can be useful if you go to the right person. But you can do that with anything. The same thing with the same thing with personal training.
Someone who is someone who is an absolute expert. Now, chiropractors will say they're an expert, but with the orthopedist doctor that is and they're sure they're bad doctors. We could get into a tremendous conversation about this. We're not going to right now.
Again, I don't want to be in the camp that says all chiropractors are quacks and bad.
They're not. They're
just
not.
Like anything. It's the same thing with like personal training, even more, because with training you don't need there aren't many. You don't really need much to get in to become a personal trainer. You need to pass a test, and depending on where you are, you barely need to do that. So the barrier to entry for and the barrier to entry for chiropractor is not. It's high. They go through a good deal of training, but it's just that you do get a lot of. There are some snake oil salesmen among that bunch, more so than you would get in other fields. So you just have to be careful and do your due diligence, just like you would do for almost anything else you're looking for. But if there is an injury, definitely doctor, get it looked at, make sure there's nothing wrong. And then if they recommend physical therapy, go to that. That's going to take care of the underlying issue more than having somebody manipulate you, whether it's massage or chiropractic.
Yep. So, all right.
Cool.
Hope everyone enjoyed our more philosophical discussion for today, and y'all know where to reach us.
Yep. Where are we? Where can people reach us?
I think, if I remember from last week, I think it's at thegymwits.com, and we also have an app.
Yeah. It's on iTunes.
Download the app.
And you get extra stuff today for dealing with prehabilitating your lower back. And that is it. I am Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, a.k.a. Chef Sonic.
And we are the GymWits.